Hey, what's up guys? This is Krishna here. Welcome to my Redshift shader for Houdini 18.5 explosion tutorial. Now the first part of this tutorial is for free, and the rest of the tutorial is available for purchase on gumroad.com. With this purchase, you will not only receive this tutorial, but also the tutorial file. Plus, you will also receive Explosion with Trails series, which includes Legacy Solver and Sparse Solver, as well as Axiom Solver, which I'm currently working on at the moment. You will also receive Blender's Cycles shader version as well. Please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, and also please have a look at my Gumroad page. I have other files available there. If you do end up purchasing any of the files, please consider leaving a rating for those files. I'd really appreciate it. This setup here is a mixture of multiple setups I went through. I worked on this for a long time. Eventually I ended up with this setup, and I nearly worked on almost 20 different setups, and they all had their advantages and disadvantages, and this is the final one. Okay, I hope you enjoy it. Alright, let's get straight into it. Okay, let me explain what we got right now. This is pretty much a blank scene at the moment. I have a camera, and I'm going to just change the resolution to, well, you know what, I'll keep it at 720. I've got a light dome, and I've selected an HDR. You can get this from HDRI Haven for free. And be sure to change the contribution scale to 1 in volume. If not, if it's 0, you won't see anything, all right? All right, good. So I'm going to create a Redshift node here, and I'm going to just drop this in there. I'm going to go into material, and I'm going to create an RS volume. Okay, good. That's perfect. And let's dive into explosion source, and let me explain what's going on here, right? So if I choose frame number 24, so the first one is the fireball, which I got from Side Effects content library. You just download the file, and I cached it out, and that's all it is, sbgeo.se. It's not a BDB file, okay? And sparse, as you know, when you purchase this file, you've got a total of 23 files, I believe. Some of them are legacy explosion, some are sparse, and I'm currently working on axiom solver as well, which I'm sure you've heard of before. So I just want to bring those in because they're different elements, and I want you to be able to render all of them using the current technique in Redshift. Okay, so I'm going to concentrate on fireball for now. Let me go to 48, maybe 36. Yeah, 36 is a better one. So what we got here is, if I click on this eye here, I've got temperature, density, flame, and velocity. In here, I've got these plus trail temperature, and I've also got something like points that are coming in, and that is the particle sims for sparks and embers, and it's the same with axiom. Okay, we don't have that in fireball. Okay, all right, good. Now if I were to put in a pyro bake volume in here, and if I click on the eye here, actually before I click on the eye, I need to go into scatter, enable scatter. You get this beautiful looking explosion. All right, if I click on eye here, there's an additional element, scatter, that has been added. Okay, we can use this as well. I will show you both ways, basically generating our own scatter and then using the scatter. That reminds me, I highly recommend you check out Applied Houdini, Stephen Nipping's tutorials, because most of the knowledge I have with Houdini came from his tutorials. He's not paying me. This is not a commercial. This is not an advertisement. I'm doing it purely out of loyalty. So I'm gonna just delete that for now. Okay, we don't need this at this moment in time. All right, I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a geometry. I call this RNDR shader. Okay, and I'm gonna go to out, go to objects, delete candidate objects asterisk, and put in RNDR asterisk. Okay, so anything with RNDR prefix will be rendered, nothing else. Okay, so it doesn't matter if I have the display flag selected or not here. Okay, and I'm gonna uncheck. Actually, I'm gonna check that. No, I'm gonna uncheck that for now. Go in. I'm gonna create an object merge. I'm gonna bring in the explosion. Okay, here it is. And usually what happens is that you go into material and you select the volume and you drag and drop it here, right? Remember, this is material context, okay? So if I click on render, I've already enabled volume. It crashed. Okay, we are back up again. So we've now assigned volume 1, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and render this. And we got this beautiful looking thing, which is perfect. And remember, I have already enabled contribution scale. If it is 0, you will see nothing. And if it's got to be more than 0, okay? So there it is. So normally this is how you do it, and you put in your emission channel here, which is temperature, which we know for a fact actually comes in. I'm going to change this black body, and I'm going to increase the scale, and I'm going to re-render it. But nothing has changed. Nothing is happening here. I'm not really sure if this is a bug in Redshift or not, but this is the new way of doing it. I don't know, okay? So there are a couple of things you need to do. Okay, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. I'm going to go dive inside and create a material node inside, and I'm going to assign it to that one. All right, and I'm going to press render again, so nothing still happens. Okay, that's all right. I'm going to delete the volume. I'm going to create RS material builder, not blender, builder, and I call this explosion, and I'm going to assign that. Good. I'm going to dive inside, delete this material, and put in an RS volume here, and connect that to volume. And now if I type in temperature and change this to black body and press render, suddenly it appears. Now I'm not sure why this is, but that's the way it is at the moment. And that reminds me, the plugin version I'm using is 3.0.35 and Houdini is 18.5.408. Okay, all right, good. So I actually wanted to take a screenshot of this before I did that, so I'll take a screenshot, and then I'll put in temperature there, and then I'll take another screenshot. Okay, good. Okay, that's what we have at the moment. Okay, so I'm just going to drag this down a lot and hold control and click on it. Hold control and click on material to set it as a render flag. So it doesn't matter where the display flag is, it'll only render the render flag, okay? So I'm going to put in a delete node here, and I'm going to select delete non-selected, meaning I am isolating density, okay? ISO density, okay? And then I'm going to isolate temperature. And go in here, select temperature. Okay, so we have now density and temperature. The idea is that what this Pyro bake node that I was showing you earlier is creating is something called a scatter. Okay, now I'm going to try and generate that using the temperature and mixing it with density. Okay, that's basically what we want. All right, if I now render this, you'll just get density because I've isolated the density. All right, if I connect it to temperature and render this, nothing appears. That's because by default Redshift is expecting density. So if I put in name node here and type in density, suddenly it appears. However, this looks different to the original because the original render had density and temperature. Now what we are visualizing is literally just the temperature. And this is a good way of visualizing it, okay? So, or you can do it another way, which is use volume, slice, and connect it there, select there. I'm just gonna leave that attribute and I'm gonna select temperature. There's temperature. Basically that's all, that's the only thing we've got there. How about if I connect it there, and if I take out temperature, sorry, take out density, nope, apologies. If I select density, it comes up as density. Again, it's temperature. What am I selecting? Okay, I'll kill the temperature. I'll check the density. There you go. So there's your density. And then if I kill the density and select flame, there's your flame. So it's all in there, okay? Redshift by default needs density at a minimum. For emission, it is definitely looking for temperature, okay? And the reason I say that is because if I put in a Pyro bake here, just for experimentation purposes, if I put it in here and connect it, enable this, and go to scatter, enable scatter, we've got this beautiful looking shader already, or preview. If I press I, you can see scattered there, right? So what if I go to render view again and isolate scatter, just the scatter, and change it to density. And if I render this, technically, you should be able to see the scatter, but I'm not seeing it. So if I change the channel to scatter here on emission, will I see it? No, you can't. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it back to temperature. And for some reason, the scatter is not being considered in Redshift volume, okay, directly. But if it is combined with temperature, then it's okay. What do I mean by that? For an example, volume mix, okay? This is a good node. So this is how you mix volumes together, okay? So we've got temperature coming in, we've got scatter coming in, we've got a volume mix, and if I multiply those two, still not showing up. Let me see here. Actually, I'm wrong. It should be the other way around. There you go. Now you can see it. And it's important to understand this because if you look at the volume mix, the input 1, which is basically A node and B node, that is connected to input 1 is the primary volume. The input that is connected to B is the secondary, okay? And I told you before, Redshift doesn't recognize scatter by itself, but because now we've mixed it and eliminated the temperature using multiplication with scatter, now we can see the value of scatter, okay? All right, that's important to understand. I hope you do. I hope I have not confused you. All right, good. So that's scatter. All right, good. So I'm just gonna delete these things for now, all right? So the idea is that I will use the density and temperature to create a scatter by myself, not using the Pyro bake volume, but we will also use that because sometimes this method of creating your own scatter may not work. Particularly, there may be flickers in the explosion shader, okay? So if you're not happy with that, then you can go ahead and use the scatter that comes in using Pyro bake volume. I'll explain everything shortly. All right, let's move on. Okay, so I'm gonna move this around this side and that one. Okay, so how do we create a scatter? Let me put in a merge, first of all, in here, and I will change this. I'll connect the density and temperature that are coming in so that we have it here, okay? So first thing we need to do is we need to convert this. Oops. Convert this to VDB. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually convert all of this to VDB. And I'll tell you why. Okay. That's because there's something called oh no, come on. There's something called VDB smooth. Okay. And this is the reason behind us getting a scatter. Okay. And there is no, let me see if there is a volume smooth. There is no volume smooth. There is a volume blur, but it's not as good. All right. Okay, good. So that's why I had to convert it to VDB. Okay. So there's a volume smoothing. And if I now click on the render, sorry, this is the VDB smooth. I mean, okay, so density, temperature, VDB smooth. Oh, I need to convert this to VDB. Okay, good. Right, there you go. So without it, with it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable use world space radius. I'm going to change this to 4 and iterations to 4. Okay. And now you kind of see what's happening here. It sort of replicates what we are seeing in the scatter. Okay. So let me just disconnect that and save this. Before I go any further, I actually want to take a screenshot of this because it seems like Houdini crashes every time you move between these two tabs. Okay. So I'm just gonna press that, copy that, copy the clipboard. Okay, so I'm using this as a reference so that we can get this to work pretty much like this. Okay, that's the point behind it. Okay, so eventually what we want to do is convert this into a scatter and feed that into Redshift. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a name and I'm going to call this scatter. Okay. Suddenly it disappears because we're still looking for temperature as our emission channel. Okay. Now if I render this, you should see that again. So scatter now works. Okay. Because the primary volume that we have changed is actually temperature. All right. So good. Now, how do we make it to look like this? Oops, what happened there? Okay, we're back now. So we've got the screenshot. So we need to make it look like that. The best way to do that is by multiplying the incoming density with your temperature. Or let's say, yeah, that's how it should be done. Because where there's temperature, I want to see density. Where there's no temperature, I want to see no density. Okay, but that is only used for the scatter, not the actual density itself, because the density is going to directly come into here into the merge node. Okay, let me show you what I mean. Okay, I'm just going to save this. Click. I'm not going to render it. I'm going to put in a VDB combine. I'm going to drop that in here. I'm going to connect that there, and I'm going to change the operation to multiply. Okay. Now, let me see, I'll take a screenshot of this and press render. Did you see that? That just happened, exactly. So, that beautiful looking thing suddenly appears. And that is because you're multiplying what's coming in with the density. And yeah, that's really the trick behind it. End of tutorial. No, not really. But we do want to make this better. Okay, so I'm just going to increase the scale to 4. Okay, here, and I'm going to increase this to 2. So you're starting to see things come up. That is good. And now here's where I want to actually use the Pyro big volume color ramp. Okay, I'm going to copy that. While I'm at it, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to paste the values. There you go. So that seems like it's sort of coming through little by little. We're getting there, but that's okay. So maybe you want to increase this to 8, I guess. Yeah. And this one do 4. Well, that's too much at 36. So I'll leave them both at 4. Okay, that looks good.